Okay, let's look at this point of conflict, because conflict can involve a number of different things. Now, every story needs it, and every story that you pretty much will have told has it in some way, shape, or form. Now, conflict can have a couple of sort of little bywords or bylines. It could involve something like resistance or battle against the odds or something else like that, and that's important too. Both, they're different sorts of stories, but they fall under the same idea of conflict. The only other story that may not involve conflict is something like an anecdote, for instance, where someone just tells something about what's happened. While those stories are still stories, they're not very good stories in terms of, unless there's something very distinct about the narrator that makes the story curious or makes it interesting, they're very, very hard stories where you can convey any sort of power or meaning, and certainly it's only for really gifted storytellers who are able to do that. A story that you'll be writing needs to have some sort of conflict in it. This conflict can come in any variety of forms. It doesn't have to necessarily be a physical fight. While physical is one of those things, it can involve things like emotion, conflicts of emotions, two different emotional kinds of people, social, as in rich versus poor, that sort of thing, spiritual, as in someone trying to understand themselves, political, it goes on. This list could go on for 100 pages, so we won't go through all of them. But any sort of situation where people can have a difference of opinion or a difference of even viewpoint, difference of belief, all these things can involve conflict, and certainly they do create conflict. They create conflict in everyday life. Because everyone's an individual, even those who say they aren't, they have a way of thinking about things that are different. And you even look at it as people who are a married couple, for instance. Now, yes, you would say married couples end in divorce, blah, 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 but even the really happy couples still have their moments where they disagree on things, and this is essentially what conflict entails, is that people will always disagree on something. Conflict being overcome is what engages an audience, and certainly your story will be about overcoming all these issues. Now, it may not necessarily be completely overcome, and certainly you may have a tragic ending where the events weren't quite fully overcome, and it may involve something that is disastrous for protagonist, but still, it's something about it being overcome. If you leave it half finished and say, oh, to be continued, you're not really writing a story, you're just sort of issuing a problem and not really giving us the solution to it. So a story needs to have that solution, that conclusion.